Okay, we're going to call the meeting of Administrative Services to order for September 4th, 2024. It's about 8:32, 8:33. Roll call, Gloria.
Here.
Pam.
Here.
Teresa.
Here.
And I'm here. Terry Greeno says she'll be here in a few minutes. And can I have a motion to allow Matt Kunkel to attend remotely?
I shall move. Second.
Moved by Pamela, second by Gloria. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, welcome, Matt. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 7th?
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Any changes or corrections to the minutes?
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Anybody have public comment?
No public comment, last call. Honey, would you like to make a public comment?
It's tough to translate that. Anyway, all right, there's no members, nobody from the public has signed up to speak. Any member comments? We'll all speak at once. Okay. Brings us down to routine consent agenda. 7.1 concerns meeting dates. 7.2 is reclassifying 4 positions. Does anybody want either of those items off?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
7.1 and 7.2?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a second? Second by Gloria. Roll call. Gloria?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. The consent agenda is approved. We have no old business. Budget reviews, benefits and HR. Come on up.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Good morning, everybody. Perfect weather for today, right? Yes. Okay. So budgets. There's not too much changing for me. We did some readjusting of different line items and stuff that you don't probably need to be too concerned about. Just reclassifying some expenditures between 8 and 9 that were needed a little tweaking. So overall, the budget really isn't changing that much. The biggest thing is, of course, we had the Archer study last year, which was an additional cost. The only thing that we're needing to do this year is to comply with IPBC, and that's to do a dependent audit. And that is done every 5 years, and that we use an outside service, and it's approximately about $15,000 to use that service. So it's something that's required. Good thing it's only done every 5 years. So that's really the only supplemental that I need at this point. Otherwise, everything is staying, pretty status quo. We see a little uptick in the benefits, but next month I'll be bringing forward that agenda and resolution to talk about the 2025 benefits. So.
Questions for HR? Matt, anything from you?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we work very diligently to make sure that all of our numbers are in a good place. So with Terry's assistance, it went well. So thank you.
Well, I hope the next 2 are just
Thank you.
facilities. You're up. You probably have a little more to do.
I can tolerate a little.
Don't make it hurt too much.
Right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I've put together a budget that I think is competitive. We worked hard to review our numbers line by line, do the kind of a zero-based approach once we get into our budget season, and that's how we approach this budget. We're pretty flat on our budget request year over year. The areas we see some pressure, inflation has been paying to a large degree. Services are still hard to come by, and we still see increases in some of our services. City of Woodstock water has been increased. That was a kind of a bit of a shock to us to see that 12% fee increase, plus we're seeing 12% or so usage increase because of the increase in the population. But otherwise, we've had some, we overcompensated a little bit when we were really facing a lot of inflationary pressure. We tamed our requests last year based on what we really saw. And this year, it looks to us that we're in a pretty good place with our budget. So that's what you see here. I don't know if there's any questions or if you'd like to explain.
What about equipment and supplies? Are you getting those relatively in a timely fashion, or are we still seeing delays even with that as well?
It's a new paradigm as far as equipment ordering goes, and expectations are that there is nothing in stock anywhere. And you know, some commodities are, but as far as equipment that goes into our buildings, not really. So, but we're all right with that because we've shifted to a pre-purchase model, and we try to stay aware of the condition of our equipment and keep that equipment in a rotation that makes sense.
May I continue, Joe? I apologize, I didn't ask. Can I also make a suggestion?
Sure.
Is that I'm watching that in almost every single municipality with regard to water and sewer services.
Okay.
My suggestion would be is to see if that's not going to be a set pattern, because that's what I'm watching.
Oh, sure.
And again, several communities is that one motion, but it's for several years, and it's an increase of 12, 10, you know, so, you know, be prepared.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
Water's been underrated for a long time, and I think many municipalities are just trying to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have lead pipes replacement work. So just, you know, we're affected by that too.
Goals and highlights are fairly standard for us. Our goal is always to try to do the best we can when it comes to energy, and staying ahead of our, maintaining our buildings at a high level, our grounds at a high level, and keeping an eye on our energy consumption, looking for opportunities for funding, rebates, incentive programs. The chiller replacement that we just completed, we received a $24,000 check back from Commonwealth Edison. We've applied for and received $10,000 additional, in addition to the $260,000 EECBG grant from Commonwealth Edison for the rooftop equipment replacement. The very successful controls project down at the joint training facility, the county received back $24,000 on that. That project is a particularly exciting for us in that we saw a building that had really, because of their franchise agreement with the utilities, they never really had to be concerned with energy consumption for that facility. And when we received it, it had an Energy Star rating of 3. Today, that Energy Star rating, because of the improvements we've done on that, is at 73. That's a huge increase. It's a 2,000% increase. This facility, although we had achieved Energy Star for it in 2018, immediately after that, EPA changed their parameters, their metrics on how they score buildings. And we sunk below Energy Star almost immediately within 4 months, just because of the metrics. We're just recently been able to get this building back up above Energy Star by a fairly wide margin, actually. Valley High is there too. We did not apply for it this year because we're doing some changes with the addition of the memory care wing, and we'll want to make sure that that doesn't impact that score. I don't believe that it will. It should be fine. But so those are kind of the things we like to quietly go about doing. It's just part of the way we operate. Our projects are all running well. We're on budget. We're generally on schedule. We do run late a little bit. The chiller took up just a little bit longer than we would have liked. I mean, it was up and running when it needed to be, but the completion of the punch list took a little bit longer than we would prefer. But overall, I think those, our teams engaged, we're full with we don't have openings, and basically I believe we have a pretty good team. So that's where we stand.
I just wanted to say
Budget.
thank you so much for your fiscal responsibility with the matter at Valley High and decision, just looking at the math with I'm talking about the backup power supply.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So that was really ingenious because to have only 2 failures in the last, how many years was it?
Well, since 1997, that we're aware of.
Yes.
That we've had little outages here and there, but where we've really been in a position to make decisions as far as bringing in mobile generations, and twice.
Yeah. So to look at that and to say, hey, this only happened 2 times in the last however many years.
It's a statistic.
So to be thinking about a $60,000 or a $650,000 expenditure, it doesn't make sense.
It should be in the mix.
So thank you for doing
Sure.
that math and putting something out there that we can look at for the 2025 budget. So that was great. We were just there yesterday. Thank you.
Any other questions for facilities management? Okay to go forward? Okay. Risk manager. Okay, Scott. Gloria, can I have that sheet back? I gotta set it over there.
Let's get it over to Eric.
Thanks, Jim.
I was a little bit worried when I saw a new court service dog, Honey, here. I'd have to follow Honey. And that would be tough, but following Tom's a tough act to follow as well. So, we'll do our best.
Just make sure to go in Teams and share the screen.
All
We have
right.
a vicious dog here. I mean, we have extra liability now.
I was gonna say, play with her now, because she'll be trained soon, and she won't care about us then.
All right, and from the beginning.
Looking at us a little differently.
Exactly correct.
Begin. There we go. Okay. All right, well, good morning. For the record, my name is Scott Hartman, Deputy County Administrator. One of my functions with the county is to manage the county's risk management program and the tort fund. And with that, I want to present to you our 2025 budget. I do have a very quick PowerPoint presentation. We'll go through this pretty quickly, and then maybe have a little bit of fun towards the end. But first off, you're asking, what is risk management? Who are they? What do they do? How does it work? In essence, we're an internal service provider for the county. We provide services for the various departments. It's not something it's not a service we provide externally, but we protect and insure the people and the assets of the county. We work to identify areas of risk, and we work on ways to mitigate that risk, whether it's a policy change or a recommendation or maybe a piece of safety equipment. But in essence, the whole key is we want to minimize risk wherever we can find it and wherever it's practical, so we work hard to do so. And what helps us is the county actually has a very active safety committee made up of representatives from multiple departments that meet regularly, and we just talk about this. We talk about areas of risk and what we can do. We get that perspective from the entire organization. It's very helpful. So the county manages the claims when they come in, and we work to preserve and protect the financial resources of the county, because anything dealing with claims or lawsuits, obviously that's an exposure to the county. We want to keep that low. If there's a claim that from a pure risk management standpoint we should just dispose of and settle, we'll consider that. If it's something that we feel we should fight, we're going to fight. I mean, our job is to protect those assets and the resources of the county to do so. Also, too, if an employee gets hurt in the rising out of in the course of their duties, we want to make sure that employee gets the full treatment that they need, that they can get back to work, that the department can get them back on the job where they need to be, and we can continue on. So we do provide a critical role to both our employees and our departments in the Workers' Compensation Act. The key statute that drives this program is the Local Government and Governmental Employees Tort Immunity Act. You have a lot of protections as a county through the Tort Immunity Act, and there's a lot of tools, but there's also a lot of restrictions in what you can do. Part of the The act allows the county to levy a tax for this purpose, but that tax is limited to only specific uses under that statute. So once that money is levied for tort, it can't be used for other means very easily. We operate a hybrid program. What does that mean? So the county maintains a lot of insurance policies. In fact, quite a few insurance policies. But the first, in many cases, $250,000 of any claim is what's called self-insured. So we have a self-insured retention, and then we have an excess policy or stop-loss policy on top of that. So we incur a lot of initial risk, but then we offload at the higher end that risk to insurance policies. What does that do? It helps keep our insurance rates low, or lower, relatively speaking, by absorbing some of that risk initially, and then, but it allows us to also limit that exposure. So if we have a really bad claim, we know we're going to be at $250,000, and then we turn it over to insurance. So it's what's called risk tolerance. It's how much risk do we want to incur as an organization? You can ebb and flow that, you can increase that, you can reduce that, but that's going to affect your insurance rates because picture as a balance. But we operate as a hybrid, and we've had this model actually for my entire tenure with the county, which is over 10 years, and it predated me. So we visit this on a regular basis to determine is this the appropriate approach and risk tolerance, and the answer usually comes back, yes it is, for a variety of different reasons. And the most important thing to note is when we talk about the insurance loss fund, or Fund 203, it is a separate fund. It does not compete with any other funds. It doesn't compete with the general fund or Valley High or any other fund. So it is a fund on its own. As we mentioned, the county has the ability to levy a tax for this purpose, but that tax is restricted for only uses under that statute. Just a real quick summary of how fiscal year 2024 will likely end up. We still have a couple months. The original revised budget was just shy of 4.3 million. Projected expenditures will come in at just a little over $3.9 million. And the bulk of those two are losses, exposure, claim management, and insurance policies. And then personnel adds to the third one. But that means there's about $373,000 that is going to be unexpended. And we'll get into reason why we have such an unexpended amount just and how we manage this program. Insurance-related costs were about over 1.5 million. We saw a big increase in our insurance rates last year. They were 10.7% increase from the previous fiscal year. Our estimated losses were over $1.1 million. Now, some of these are claims that you've seen through settlements. Others are just managing workers' compensation claims. Somebody has a surgery. You don't necessarily hear about that, but a surgery could be $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. Our employees do hard work. Sometimes their work has risk, and sometimes they get hurt on the job. Like I said, it's our job to make sure we take care of our employees if they get hurt. So there's a lot of expenses that go in that you may not see as a county board. You do see settlement reports, and then you do participate in settlement discussions on the higher levels. But with that, that's why that number may look higher than what you're familiar with. I will point out the lowest that we've had since 2020. We had a few bad years previous to that, and actually this chart in the upper right-hand corner, this loss by year and type. You can see just the bar graph. That's everything stacked up. You can see 2024 as this one, but we had a few bad years over there. But we also had a few good years. Problem is, we never know year to year what it's going to be, which we'll get into. Ending fund balance for the tort fund we predict will be just about $1.47 million. And then we'll get into how we can work with that number further down. Fiscal year 2023 ended at $1.152 million, so we used a little over $104,000 of that fund balance between 2023 through 2024. Okay, so you have the budget in front of you. Hopefully you had a chance to dive into it and take a look at it. Just want to point out a few key notes about it. The non-personnel portion of the budget is about $3.3 million. That does not include personnel, but it does include unemployment. If we have an unemployment claim, the county pays that directly, but that actually comes out of the tort fund, and it comes out of the personnel line item. So that is rolled into here. This projects about $180,000 in increased insurance costs. As I mentioned, last year was about $1.5 million. We're expecting insurance rates to go up about 9% this year based on trends, based on the industry, based on working with a broker.
Again, you said based on trends.
Mhm.
So do you normally see that kind of average increase just anyway, or because, we've had a couple of bad years where it's higher than you would say is?
It's more so a product of the environment. Our loss experience has been relatively
Pretty
good.
good, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few areas that we had some claims, but for the most part, as an organization, we have been doing very well. We're beholden to the environment. We're beholden to all the property losses when a natural disaster strikes in Florida. That affects the county just like it affects your homeowner's insurance rates. So some things we just can't control no matter what we do because the industry is going to go up. Once again, we can look at a risk tolerance and we can say, well, if we take on more risk, say $500,000 of the claim, you can reduce that, but what are you buying? You may buy, may save a couple tens of thousands of dollars, but now you incur $250,000 more in exposure. So you got to, once again, keep that balance. But even with a $180,000 increase in insurance rates, this budget really only comes in at a little over $96,000 in non-personnel related costs. So we try to absorb in other areas where that's going to be, that overage in the insurance. So it's not just 180 off the top and we kept everything the same. We want to work through those numbers. There was a few areas of opportunity based on some program changes we made last year and in previous years that are now paying off. Most namely, moving to a risk management pool for workers' compensation allowed us to reduce our in-house workers' compensation claim exposure. So let's say $50,000 in the budget. So we look for those areas of opportunity to keep that number low. But unfortunately, what you're seeing is a little over $96,000 increase. Once again, that's not competing with any other fund. That is only within the tort fund. But this does not budget for a worst case scenario. I mean, I could present, $10 million in my loss, fund and reserve, and inflate that number. But we try to be very practical in what we include for anticipated loss. Loss fund and reserve is a pretty big line item in here under contractual and the 40, at 3.2 million, about well over $1 million, actually about 1.1 million is what we just set aside for all those claims. As I mentioned last year, we had $1.1 million in claims. So that's what I pay those out of. So we try to look at trends and say, what is an appropriate number? I don't want to arbitrarily inflate this budget and, and say I can cover it and not have to come to you for an emergency appropriation if we have a bad year. But that's not a really good practice. We want to be mindful of how we budget.
Yeah. So when we're talking about, I know we self-insure, but you also indicated that we also purchase insurance on top of that. How does that fit into our budget? When do we actually get those numbers compared to when we're actually budgeting for those numbers?
So we're actually in the renewal period. Our policy year starts December 1. In this meeting in November, you're going to see the insurance program rolled up. So right now, I'm going with a 9% estimate. And insurance companies typically won't quote within 30 days of a renewal.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, so I'm kind of going in the dark a little bit. We're pretty good at what we do. We're pretty, pretty on top of it, but you never know. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, moving on. As we talk about insurance costs, here it is. Here's what I'm anticipating. And you can see that graph really shows you how insurance rates have they've been going up, despite all the great work that we do and our employees and trying to be safe and have a culture of safety. And, like I said, it's a product of the environment, the industry, the trends. We're beholden to, things that are happening elsewhere. Our primary insurance, we're anticipating a little over $1 million. Our excess insurance, just shy of $700,000. And over the years, a few pain points that we've had to deal with. Valley High was one. The past couple of years, knock on wood, it was a very flat renewal. We're looking at, anticipating, I have 7%, but we're not sure. The public nursing home market has very stabilized. And that's good because, I mean, we had years of pretty brutal increases not too long ago. That's in there, more of a conservative estimate. Hopefully it doesn't come in on that. Property is going up. As I mentioned, your homeowners insurance rates probably, felt the pain of a lot of insurance companies having to pay off from major storm damage and billion-dollar events. Well, that gets spread through everybody. The county's not immune. We're anticipating property insurance to continue to be a pain point. In the past, our excess coverage and cyber insurance, really, we saw those kind of increasing, at a very high rate. We're anticipating that market is stabilized, so I think that's a good thing. I did note we shifted to a IPRF, which is a risk management pool for workers' compensation, and that's helping us rein in some of our risk management costs. In addition, that actually reduced our top-end exposure for a claim. In the past, we had $650,000 for an employee, $1 million actually last year, previous years, for a sworn officer. Now we're at $500,000, as the end. So something bad happens, $500,000 and we're out. So, which is I think very helpful when we look at the overall long-term exposure to the county. Yeah, highlights and goals, you have those in your packet. I don't want to touch on those. I do want to make a change, though. In our highlights, one of the things that we do as an internal service provider, we work with other departments. We've been working with DOT and helping to subrogate the claims for their property damage caused by other drivers. So a driver hits a guardrail, so that driver's insurance company may not want to pay for that guardrail. Well, that's a county asset. Somebody has to fix that guardrail. So we work with DOT and the state's attorney, and we go after the insurance company. We know how to do it, and we've been pretty effective, and we've really developed our process over the past couple of years because they were doing it, DOT was doing it, but you know what? It's more of our lane. So we said, you know what, we're going to do it. I have $89,000 in recovery for this past year. Actually, we just got another $15,000 yesterday. So we're over $100,000 of having those responsible for the damage to county property paying for it. So we're very pleased about that. A couple key goals. One of the things that we're looking for is efficiency to our employees. All employees who drive a county vehicle have to go through a defensive driving course. And if you've had a ticket or so, maybe you've gone through the exact same course, because it is that DD4 course that if you get court supervision, it's the same course. But we do that because it really helps our drivers become aware and mindful of, when they're behind the wheel, of their roles and responsibilities. There's a cost to that, and then there's time commitment for employees. We're now having on-site classes. Very efficient, lower cost. I think our employees really like it, but better because they can come into a classroom setting, just do it, get it done. It's about a 4-hour course, so it's a commitment. I think that's a key change. There's a few others in there too. If you have any questions on this goals and highlights, we're happy to talk about those, but I'll move on. Performance indicators, really, you can look at those. One thing to note is the in-house workers' compensation claims have really dropped. We anticipate those to drop because of our shift to our risk management pool for workers' compensation. They handle all those claims now. Just some keynotes or some key changes in the budget. We talked about the insurance premium increase. This is an election year, so public officials have to be bonded. Not so much county board members, but sheriffs and state's attorney and circuit clerk. There's a public officials bond that we have to purchase by statute, and depending on their office, it could cost a lot. This is an election year, so I have to budget for that. It's not a lot, and one of the things that we've done is we've shifted to basically self-insuring that public official bond. We have the ability to do so, so we've done so, and that helps save a couple $1,000s here and there. So we've been working through that. There's a big reduction, or actually I should say a reduction in unemployment reimbursement costs. We're not seeing that activity as we have in the past. I've dropped that number down. But what's important to note though, this budget does have a significant increase in salary. In July, when the county board heard the state's attorney's office saying that they need to increase the pay for their state's attorneys, we have several state's attorneys that are either wholly or partially within the tort fund. So when you increase their salary, that put pressure on the tort fund. So that increased our personnel costs for that action. So our personnel costs are a little bit higher because of that. And just pointing that out, that it impacted the tort fund as opposed to the general fund. A few items to note, and this is, the last slide, just so you know. Risk management allocates monies to other departments. We purchase body armor and gloves for the sheriff's office. We handle the medical waste disposal contracts for corrections and for the coroner's office. We provide training and meeting expenses for our state's attorney's office because they handle our defense. We want to make sure they're well equipped to defend us, and they can get training whenever training comes up that would be very germane to help reduce our risk. So we allocate money to ensure they can get a certain level of training. And we also we pay for their bar association dues for those that are directly attributable to the tort fund. As mentioned, the unemployment insurance is in the personnel line item. It's in the 3,000s as opposed to other areas of the budget. So I make that note every year, and I know Gary and Pete rather, they don't like me to. I say that because we have a really bad year for unemployment, and we see that budget. Well, that taps into our personnel costs, and for paying all this money in unemployment, Pete may have to come in and say, Scott, too many unemployment claims, I can't pay your salary because we're over budget and personnel. So, kind of sensitive to that. So I wanted to just kind of point that out. In that event, of course, we would have an emergency appropriation, and hopefully you would say, instead of cutting salaries, we increase the unemployment cost for the appropriate reasons. We do have several employees that are not related to the directly risk management into this budget. We have 5.2 full-time equivalents to the state's attorney's office, mostly attorneys, but there are some administrative staff. We have half of our chief information security officer, our CISO, because cyber insurance and cyber security is one of our key risks. So we fund half of that position to ensure that we got somebody out there keeping tabs on how our system needs to be protected, so that cyber threat can be minimized. And the other two, part of Kathy's salary is within risk management. Lisa Shamhart is a risk manager, is in there. And actually, a change from last year, only half of my salary is in the risk management. Now I'm funded by a general fund and the economic development fund since last year moving forward. And that helps relieve pressure on the risk management fund. So with all that said, there's a lot of moving parts that go to risk management. It's like, how do we make sense of where we're going to be and what do we need and what are our losses? And so since risk management fund is protected or funded mostly out of the tax levy, it was really critical for the county to understand how much tax levy do you need year to year to ensure that we're going to have an adequate amount to cover our insurance costs, our losses, potential settlements, what we see on the horizon. And keep in mind, if we get sued today, that the full weight of that lawsuit isn't manifesting for 2 to 3 years. So we can have an outlook. And we came down to the point, for a while, the tort fund was really well funded. The county had a different approach. Over the years, the fund balance was drawn down because, quite frankly, it needed to be. But then we reached a point where it's okay. We're at almost a level where we need to start making some decisions. So this golden field really represents the fund balance. The whole point of this model, which was put together, is really to tell Carrie and Pete and the county board how much tax levy do you need this year and moving forward for the risk management purposes. And so there's a lot that goes on here. There's a lot of costs that are being tracked. But the whole point is to say how much tax levy do we need. This year, and this budget includes $3.5 million. So when you go through and you have that larger discussion on your overall tax levy, you'll know where that risk management or the tort fund request fits in. If you say, gee, Scott, we're only going to give you $2 million, well, we can do that, but then, very quickly, we're going to have to be funding, it didn't change. Why didn't it change? Oh, Greg, it didn't change. Do I need to refresh it?
Trust us, we
Okay.
know that.
Anyway, so the whole goal line is now subterranean. Show you here, does that help?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was the last slide.
Yeah. But anyway, so we have the model, and I was, oh, I know why, hold on, I gotta, yes, thank you. Well, you know, the county pays me to do risk management, not teams, right? But, well, kind of they do. So if I do stop sharing, and then I wanna share, we pick this screen, okay. There we go, okay. Uh-oh.
Ben is doing it.
Like that.
He'll just hit that line.
Okay,
It's in the middle of the screen.
Just hit that
yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Okay.
So we can see small or yellow.
Oh, well, anyway, okay.
This one.
So, yeah.
Just
It's okay.
That's okay. Okay. Well, and I'll just end it. So we actually we have a model. We try to predict what we're going to have for losses moving forward, what our settlements are going to be, some areas of exposure. We predict insurance costs. We make assumptions on what those costs are going to be. We have some known costs that are moving forward in the next several years. We build all that into a model which really shows how much does the tort fund need from a tax levy in order for it to be sustainable, to have sufficient fund balance or reserve to cover those costs. The county has an option. You do not have to fund the tort fund. You don't have to levy anything. But you're going to have to pay for insurance, and you're going to have to pay for settlements or judgments if we lose the case, and they're going to come from somewhere. So if it's not out of the tort fund, it could come out of the general fund. The whole point of this is to show you as county board members what you need to put in here to sequester enough reserves to ensure that we can cover our costs, our insurance, our settlements, our claims, our judgments, our losses, and our risk programs to ensure we can mitigate our risk moving forward. So, anticlimactic. I wish that this would work. I can show you after this meeting, but the tort fund model will bring a tear to your eye. I assure you. So, with that, that's our budget. That's our presentation. That's our report. Any questions?
I'm a little curious about something, you mentioned workers' unemployment compensation rather. How big of a piece is that, and does the county aggressively fight unemployment compensation? Or, because I know like in private practice is a little bit different.
Actually, I'm going to say that's a fantastic question. In private practice, typically a business will buy unemployment insurance, right? You cover those costs. As a county, we pay our claims directly. So if we get, somebody claims unemployment, the state pays them, and then we, in essence, reimburse the state, for that amount. This year, it is. I'm looking up that figure. I think for the budget, and historically, we would budget around $70,000 last year. It is now $67,250 for this year, which we feel is very adequate. But do we fight those claims? Absolutely. In fact, HR is on the job. We get their report. They will protest. They will and they will go through the motions. And yeah, if it's not a legitimate claim, they're on it.
So I'm just curious, what kind of a claim would you lose? Because
generally, it's when you're disputing anything with unemployment, it's gross misconduct. They're going to award it pretty quickly, but at the same time, some departments will ask us to not contest the unemployment because they just feel that it wasn't a good fit. They want the person to go on and be whole and find a new job, and so that we have departments that ask us not to contest a claim. But generally, they're pretty quick to give unemployment unless it's real gross misconduct. So it's a little different than what it used to be. Before it was, you had to get it. Now they automatically gave it to you, and then the company would have to contest it, and it would go through that way. Now it's a little bit different how it's awarded. That actually there's interviews done prior to giving it. So those interviews and stuff happen first, so we have the chance to be in the fight first before it's actually awarded. So Holly does a really good job. She works with all the departments to understand what the separation was, what the reasonings were, and if we have, and we win quite a bit. I mean, we generally win when we go to any type of arbitration when we're speaking. So I think it's managed very well within the department, so.
Just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How does it work at the training center now?
I'm sorry?
How does it work at the training center,
They-
insurance coverage? Is that included in the figures that we figure out on how to share that cost across the board? Do we include that?
So right now, as it stands, we are just covering the building. The county owns that building, so we insure that for property.
But I mean, if something would happen there.
Yeah, it falls under our liability
It does,
insurance as
okay.
well.
Okay, just was
We
curious.
did learn
Cover it.
I wondered if it was included in the cost that we charge our partners.
the five-person board.
Yeah.
They were looking at a 70-30 cost share, so there may be, and that's kind of moving forward, so there may be an opportunity to get a little bit from that group.
That's all I was asking, is if it was considered in the cost share as part of their,
And it very well could be.
Yeah.
Could be a charge.
or maybe going forward. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Matt, do you have any questions?
Just a comment, as always, Scott's very thorough, I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the fact now that we are going after private insurance carriers when people damage county property. It seems to be only fair. But thank you for the effort.
Thanks, Scott.
And as always, if anybody wants to see the model, I'm happy to show after the meeting. I will send out this PowerPoint to you, just so everybody has it. You can see some of the detail, but thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott. Strategic planning approach.
Might as well just sit right
Some
there.
consensus to move forward?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
consensus, yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you share the cost?
No. We can just do that. It's weird because it changed on here, but it didn't change on the big screen.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly.
So Scott emailed this out yesterday.
Handed it out this morning. Should have it on there.
Just wanted to spend a moment to talk about it and see if we're on the right track. I think this is kind of what we articulated a month ago. We want to work with NIU, get a little bit of work done before we transition into the new year. There are things that we can do, like survey employees. We can do that before the end of the new year. We could meet potentially with our department heads in some manner. What else am I going to do?
Who is this?
I was going to introduce him. Alex Wall is our new administrative intern from NIU. Alex hopefully will be with us for the next couple of years, learning the trade, working alongside Alicia, Scott, and myself. We're glad to have him here, and strategic planning is going to be a big part of his responsibility too.
That's great. Yeah, this is an exciting opportunity as a student, and I wish I would have had a student had this opportunity when I was in issues. He's seeing a strategic planning process from the very start. You know how important that is to this organization, to all of you, and how you embrace it. For him to be a part of that, I think is going to be such a rewarding experience. You're going to probably see a lot of Alex working on the strategic plan, and so hopefully you're going to enjoy this opportunity.
So dumb question, I'm going to admit right up front, I don't know the answer to the question. So did we survey our employees last time we did strategic? What did we specifically ask? Because I'm real sensitive to asking for input and then not responding to any input. I would get pissy about it.
It was like a 10 pretty open-ended questions. If you come back to McHenry County in 10 years and you're away, what do you think you'd see? What would you want to see? What are some of the county's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? That's kind of just seeding ideas. That's all we wanted to do was kind of get some thoughts about what do our employees think about, what are the challenges facing the employees, what does the county board need to know about employment at McHenry County? Those kinds of.
Is it explained that it's being incorporated into the information presented to the board? Okay. Then I think that's a really good idea.
We have the survey that we did last year, in 2020, and in fact, we reviewed, we're like, that's actually a pretty good survey. Your point's really well taken about what are we asking for, and if they're going to respond, how are we going to use that information. I think the questions were really well developed last time. It's a very simple survey. But it generated some really good feedback, and what that feedback does is it gets compiled and then it gets shared with you, because our employees are in the field and they're seeing your services firsthand. They're administering them, delivering them, and they may have some insight that we're all new to, and that's what we want to get out.
No doubt about it. I'm just saying to make sure that they understand that it is given to us and it is incorporated into our conversation, because there's nothing more irritating than providing input and having it kind of sort of get shoved over to the side. So that's all I wanted to ask.
100% agree, yeah, absolutely. And a lot of what we're proposing follows suit with that 2020 approach. Employee survey was the first foray into it, and another major component is the facilitators, we met with your senior leadership, your department head, your elected officials, your senior leaders, in a kind of we called it an open forum, and solicited their thoughts and their ideas and their perspectives, because as your department head, they see what's coming on the horizon and things that you need to be aware of or be planning for, or maybe an opportunity that we should position ourselves to take advantage of. So you'll need that insight as well. This proposal incorporates that same approach, which we think was really well received. It was more of a free-form discussion, but when you get that group together in a room, just the quality of the discussion is fantastic, and they get a certain energy about them, and then ideas start flowing and they get exchanged, and so I thought that was really rewarding. Last time, we're looking at doing the same approach this time. And that would be the key area of input for your department heads and elected officials.
So we'll roll all that up information, and then the facilitators have it to help pull it out of you and help you place priorities on these ideas or come up with these ideas. Probably have a day and a half or 2 half days of retreats with you guys. And so I think Chairman Bueller would like to focus on April as the time frame for that. After we do one-on-one interviews by district, February time frame.
One other area of input, and there's a lot of different schools of thought on strategic planning and how this will go, is your external stakeholder engagement. And who do you bring in and talk to? And that's always a challenge, because there's a lot of stakeholders for the county, and you have to be responsive to so many different individuals and the groups and everything. And how do we best capture that so you have an understanding of kind of that external environment collectively? The challenge is when you get stakeholders together, and this is brought out in the proposal, and I want to throw it on the table and get your thoughts and hopefully your consensus on this approach. Depending on who you bring in, you may get a lot of input that, in essence, can be outside of the county's control. People, they could talk about, how do we manage the school district taxes? Well, you can't, right? And so really be mindful of, what is the quality of that external input that you're going to receive that's really going to be germane to what you do. So what is being proposed is really focusing in on our key partners. Key partners are MCEDC, naturally McHenry County, MCCD, McCog, McHenry County College. It's just really those four, because we stand shoulder to shoulder with those groups in many different areas. We intersect in so many different levels. They know what we do, and they know what you do. And I think that they could bring in a good level of insight and also keep it reined into their perspective to the county board as the things you should be aware of. So we're going to recommend, we don't know if it's going to be a survey or maybe in-person meetings, but really limit external stakeholders to those partner groups. And I want to put that on this table and kind of get your thoughts on that. How do you feel about it?
Mental health needs to be here.
I have a question. What was the third group? I got MCDC, McCog, MCC.
They're on the sheet right there.
Oh,
Right
duh.
there.
Sorry. Thanks.
No, I like that approach. I think sometimes we waste a lot of time dealing with things that we have no control over and won't impact what we need to do. So I like that approach.
That was all good.
My only issue with mental health was we just spent a year and a half getting beat up by the mental health community. And we ended up changing their funding completely, and we did all kinds of things. So let's bring them in at the beginning and get their comment.
Good addition. And then I would say probably the final piece, just to bounce off of you, is your, I'm gonna call it your small group engagement. So you're gonna have workshops where the whole county board meets collectively, you talk about it, deliberate, you develop your strategic plan. But before that, and those who've been through the process before, you'll know that we've typically utilized a small group approach where a few county board members would get together just with the facilitator, not with Peter, Alicia, or Alex, or I, just with the facilitator, so you can have some pretty free-form and frank discussions on what you see the needs are and the priorities and what your constituents need. What we're proposing is, so we have 9 districts, 2 person per district. We do it on a per district basis. So District 1 would meet with the 2 District 1 representatives, with the facilitator, and so on and so forth. That does a couple things. First off, it avoids any Open Meetings Act violation, because if we're bringing potentially 3, then we have to check, or 3 members on the committee, and then it makes it more efficient to schedule, because it's easier to schedule for 2 people than it is for 3 or more. And I think it'll help keep your time commitment in that part of the process more reined in. So you can probably have about an hour or so with the facilitator.
It could even be less. I think last time we did with groups of 4, they were about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But if we had just 2, I think it's conceivable that they could get through their battery of questions in less than an hour.
Yeah, and then we'll tee your facilitators up for whenever you go to the workshop, they'll be better prepared to kind of address, respond, and maybe invoke good discussions along those points. So at the very beginning of the sheet I sent out, the facilitator, we want to bring in Center for Governmental Studies, NIU Center for Governmental Studies. We did them for the last 2, was it? Or maybe was it 3 times?
Done it 3 times. They're so price competitive, and they know us. And
I agree, they know us so well.
and they're so flexible.
Yeah, and they're local.
They're not in it to make money. They're just in it to help cover their costs.
Yeah.
And if we want to do more of this, if we want to use AI to tabulate the survey results, we can do it, and they won't charge us for it. And so maybe Alex can get charged of this.
It's going to be generally the same team, and
He's not going back to saying we can raise our rates.
Their initial proposal was under $30,000, so the intent was they'll put this, we'll just do this administratively. The scope of service is still yet to be defined, because there's a few points we wanted to discuss here about how we want to do the engagements and make sure you're on board with this proposal, with this proposed approach. If you are, then we can send it to NIU, we can work with them and really refine truly what that scope of services would be, what we're going to do internally versus what we're going to ask them to do. And that's really obviously going to set what the pricing is. But it's under $30,000. They know us, as you said. It's going to be the same team, or largely the same team that has worked with you before. So they know some of you pretty well, and which is good, because when you take that unknown quantity out of it, it's I think it's going to make it a much more efficient process, and they may be able to probe a little bit further in some of the areas that they knew in the past were areas of priority or importance, and kind of see where that sits today, because really the strategic plan is builds upon itself from previous, and it's what are your priorities today? Are they continuing from previous, or are there new ones that come to the table? So they'll be able to really lead that discussion and facilitate your discussion with them. So with that, that's what we wanted to bring to you.
Comments, questions? Board, are you guys okay with this pattern?
And go forward with whatever preliminary work you need to do. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When are you going to tell the new board that they need to think about these things?
Usually the very first
Yeah,
meeting when they get their introduction.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was going to mention later, we need to start thinking about new county board member orientation.
Right, yes, yeah.
If not, it will definitely be by then.
Right, because I remember
Not
I
sure.
was a new board member when we did this 4 years ago. And, March was still getting your bearings of what it is even the scope. I don't think people necessarily always know all of the organizations we're affiliated with, right? So
Most of them don't. I mean, actually, the first
Yes.
part, that's the same for everybody. The
Right.
beginning, you're like, wow, we do what?
So under
It's
this
scary
proposal-
to think that people run for election and have no idea what their
Oh my God.
responsibilities are.
Like they should like at least read the admin,
Hello.
you know, I
It
know.
would have been helpful.
Under this proposed schedule, the workshop or workshops would happen in April. So there'd be some time for new county board members to get acclimated, but I guess by April, how acclimated can you be? I mean, you've all been new county board members before, and you know it's kind of a whirlwind and a fire hose of information. But anyway, April gives them time to situate a little bit. And then ultimately, we would anticipate probably in July, you know, everything goes well, a July document adoption.
Because this is faster. Last time we didn't do the workshop till June.
Yeah. Well, it was also COVID as well, if you remember.
Right,
yeah,
that
kind
was
of
the biggest.
impact.
Things like, something like this being included in an initial packet to new board members, along with the rules, the board rules, that they should read and check for typos. And but just the general organizational structure, just.
It's done during, I think, orientation, but sometimes, you know what, it's like everything else. You get that much paper, right? And people, you don't necessarily read everything, I think.
Well, before the
So we
meeting.
try and talk about that, I think, a little bit more in orientation. More practical.
You know what I mean? Just-
Yeah.
And you know, as over the years, we've been tweaking the orientation program. In fact, I think last year, county board members had a much larger role on that orientation program. We appreciate those suggestions. You've all been there before, and within your first 6 months, what did you wish you knew from day one? And that's really the fundamental question. What can we tell you? You're not going to know everything, and the orientation's not going to give a county board member everything they need to know. It's impossible. But what do you need to know in that first 6 months? What's most essential, most critical, most valuable to you?
Well, and candidly, I think the strategic planning process is probably one of the biggest things you can impact because it sets what staff's going to do the next 4 years. And you may not have, it may be their first time, you not realize it, but you're not going to have one of these every year. You're going to have, a review, you're going to see what's being done on it, but you may not realize that you just set course for 4 years. So it really is valuable, and that's the first 6 months for somebody to say, hey, these are our long-term plans. And yes, long-term is 4 years, not 40 years, but it makes a difference.
And I think what McHenry County should be extraordinarily proud of, and I know as the staff we are, is how the county board adopts a strategic plan and then it permeates into the organization. It's not something we adopt it, put it on the shelf, 4 years later, pull it out and dust it off. It is a document that not only you as county board members refer back to or check in with. We track the progress on it, but your department has your elected officials, they're well aware, they absorb it. They say, okay, what do we need to do? What is that direction? So it is, the culture of strategic planning in this organization, for decades it's been like that. And you should be very proud of that, to keep that going, because that's one of the greatest strengths an organization like this can have, is have that vision, have that direction, and say, this is where we want to go. Strategic plan is not going to cover everything, right? There's going to be a lot of things that come in over the course of that 4 years.
You didn't plan COVID the time before?
Well, the bird flu is coming out. So.
Gee, how could you be so unprepared?
Well, there is, and on my shelf, there's a binder that was talked about in the early 2000s on pandemic preparedness. So I say that because when COVID hit, it's not like nobody has thought about it before, and the county certainly contemplated it. We didn't know what it would look like, but you go through that binder, a lot of things like, yeah, that panned out, that was true, that was correct. They kind of missed it over here. You never know what it's going to be. The whole point was, people were thinking in those terms for a long time, and I was really pleased when I found that pandemic preparedness binder. If you remember back in for a while, it was the bird flu, H1N1. Those were the kind of the pandemics that were heir apparent at the time. Nobody anticipated COVID, and what they didn't anticipate was the entire supply chain, not only nationally but internationally, being shut down. Emergency preparedness never takes that into equation, but now we have to because we see it. But that being said, that's what we had for you today on strategic planning. We appreciate the consensus for proceeding with this approach, and we are looking forward to it.
Thank you, Scott. Capital plan.
Tough ground to follow up with. Briefly, Crystal Lake ARPA project is nearing completion on design. We just received 100% design drawings. Health department will be looking through them. We will be looking through them, and then they will be posted for bid. We'll receive bid documents the end of this month, and they'll go out to bid on October 1 or October 2, and we will be back before the county board with the bids in November for discussion and or approval. I think I mentioned that we had rolled into that project a roofing project that we had scheduled under capital. This will be bid as an alternate, and it will be using different capital funding source. So it's not that we added scope to the project. It just made sense for us to try to get that work included while we had mobilization from a contractor on site. So that's a little bit different than typical. We come out here to this property. We have a parking lot project. You might notice some spray painted markings on the drive lanes. We'll be doing soil borings and looking at subsurface conditions. There's a little bit of water seepage in the back of the lot that didn't get picked up when it was built. We'll try to address that. We'll be out for bid. We have a meeting this week to establish a bidding schedule, but we'll be sometime this winter, the spring start is the goal here. We'll have several alternates as part of that bid as well, one of which will be EV infrastructure. Another will be, over the years we've heard it would be nice to be able to walk around this property without walking through the parking lot. So we'll have an ad alternate that we can consider or not to put in a walking path around this property that would link the sidewalks or take it a little bit through the back property and then back out to the sidewalks. There may be some funding opportunities for that as well. And then we will look at this detention basin at the front of the property and see if we can just add just a little bit of something other than perfect straight lines around it. So add a little bit of curvilinear outline to the detention basin and add some of the native plantings that we'll see elsewhere on the property to that. I think it'll be a good demonstration project for planning and development because they are encouraging people coming to the county with projects to do this sort of work to their own site. And again, because this is the headwaters of the Nippersink river system, there's potentially some funding that help us offset those costs as well. So there'll be those three alternates in addition to the parking lot itself. We'll also be bringing some drawings around to department heads. Bring them here as well as far as how we're going to get people in and out of this building while we have the parking lot tore up. Because there will be some inconvenience to staff and the public. And we want to make sure that people are in agreement that this will work for them. Valley High really doesn't have a lot to report on. Things are tracking as expected out there. The budget is in good shape. The schedule, we're being told the contractor will be substantially complete in the month of October. And I imagine we'll still see them in November and unfortunately maybe even in December. But meanwhile, we will have applied for IDPH, and Tom and his team will be able to start planning for their staff training, et cetera, during that period of time. I don't know if he has established first day of operations or not. I haven't talked to him.
I mean, I think it's supposed to be early.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's February, March, but.
Yeah, that would seem logical.
We've had an estimated date, but no, nothing solid. Right?
So that's.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious, you were talking about some of the plants and funding opportunities. Has anyone looked into native plants?
That's what we'll be using.
Okay,
Yes.
because I know there's funding available for
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's the plan.
Cool.
All right.
Not seeing anybody else, thank you.
You're welcome.
HR, you're back on tap,
Back in the house.
back in the hot seat.
All right, so I successfully scheduled a vacation and went and came back. So yes,
We're glad you decided to come back. I
yes,
appreciate
I
that.
came back and just catching up on my emails and everything, so that was wonderful. I spent some time out east visiting with my son that lives in New Hampshire, so I was very happy to get away for just a little bit, kind of clear my mind and come back. We're now starting recruiting for our new position, so we're very excited about adding to staff. I think this new person will bring a different dimension to what we need, so I'm really excited about finding that perfect fit for us.
Is that your replacement?
No, it's.
I mean, not the current job, but your old job.
No, it's actually, it was an administrative role. You
Okay.
approved in a resolution
Okay,
last
yeah.
month. It
Okay,
was,
yeah.
we're doing an HR coordinator / HR coordinator and wellness coordinator. Wellness is a really big piece, and it really needs a lot of focus and time. It's a lot of coordinating, and I feel like bringing in someone with maybe some health education background will really help bring up that level of mental health awareness and just overall health to the county employees. So we're excited to get that on board.
But Suzanne, to Teresa's question, you're still down one head count.
Yes, that's our position that we're filling. Yeah,
So it's just, we changed the position, we're not adding.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it was an admin position. So yeah, so we're all excited to get that started. Thank you for that, Pete. We're beginning our busy time. So next month, like I said, I'll bring forward resolution in regards to what the new 2025 benefits are going to look like. There's some changes going on within IPVC. They're starting to offer more supplemental plans, whether it be an accident, critical care insurance and stuff like that. So we're just starting to get a view of what that's going to look like, and do we want to bring that forward to our employees as well. So we'll have a lot of things to talk about with benefits for next month, as well as the open enrollment will start October 21st and run through November 1st. So that again is a very busy time for us answering questions, getting out communications and things like that to the employees. So also in October, we start sending out to the departments the performance reviews so that the departments can start working with their employees and doing their annual performance reviews and get those back to us in time for the increases that go into effect December 1st. So like I said, it's an ambitious time. It's a busy time, but I think we're well staffed and ready to go. As well as unions and more unions. So probations is scheduled to start on 9/27. Michelle Courier is the negotiator for that contract, so we'll be working with her on 9/27 to get that started. We've already had some preliminary meetings internally, just to kind of strategically plan what the needs are.
I don't think these guys know Michelle Courier, many of them.
I do, but
I do.
Well,
Former chief of civil, and she now works for the administrative office of Illinois courts.
Yes.
So it's AOIC that's really the lead negotiating. Suzanne will be on the side there.
Yep.
Alongside, not on the side.
Yeah, long time. So yeah, so it's a little bit different than what we work with the FOP with. We have our internal Kyle from State's Attorney. So thanks for that clarification. So that'll be starting on the 27th of September. So it's a busy time. Like I said, I think we're well staffed and ready to go. The team's doing great. We miss Cheryl, but I think we're doing okay.
How long do we anticipate those negotiations to be? Like just for my information.
For your information,
Yeah.
their contracts end the end of November.
Okay.
The goal is to, of course, settle before
then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unit 3 stretched out pretty significantly beyond that, but the goal is to hopefully have them negotiated and signed, at the time that
Or the other one expires.
Yeah.
And may I ask too, you still intend to bring forward quarterly the information that Cheryl brought us with regard to hires and empty
Yes.
positions and stuff like that?
Yeah, last month we brought forward all the vacant positions and things like that, so yes, we'll do that quarterly.
Thank
If there's
you.
anything else you need from me or you would like information on, please feel free to email me, and I'd be happy to pull that information together, so.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Communications.
All right. It's time for everybody's favorite part of this meeting, right? All right, just here, just gonna have you with that. Would anybody like a paper copy of the report by chance?
Thank you.
All right.
It's the same one you sent out, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. There were changes.
I'm sorry?
If there were changes, that'd be different, but okay.
Well, I always try to ask. All right, so it's been an exciting time for communications as always. Communication strategic plan, one of your priorities was to make it so that the public knows how they can get involved and be more engaged with the things that we do here at the government. Well, to that end, we had a very successful and creative, in my humble opinion, communication that went out regarding a certain creature, let's call him, that was guilty, in my opinion, of Grand Theft Garden. But again, I'll get into that a little bit more in the communications and notes section. But the point of this was that we were able to educate people on different ways that they could donate to our local food pantries and also learn a little bit more about the different ways that individuals give back to the community, especially through the probations department. So again, more to come on that. But we did a lot of communications collaborations in this past month. We worked with the treasurer's office to put out a press release regarding, I know, deep breath, second installment of property taxes due September 10. I know, I don't want to bring you all down, but it's there.
Just did that today. And not just in case. As I drove by.
We also work with the Mental Health Board to, help raise awareness about the Community Connections Summit, the county clerk regarding the election center, GSEP regarding their recent meeting at the new Foglia Center to get an idea for all the different counties about the different services that are provided at the college and the different ways that we are educating our workforce. That's really cutting edge here in McHenry County. We are also collaborating with the Economic Development Corporation, Naturally McHenry County, the college, and Workforce Network to develop a video series for right now to educate the public on all the different resources that we have in the county, all the different attributes that make us friendly for business. So we got 2 filmings done for Naturally and for our intro video, and we look forward to filming the one with the college and the Workforce Network next week. So more to come on that. We intend on pushing them all out week by week so that people can have the satisfaction of watching the series as it goes on and not having any uncertainty as to when the next one can come out. So stay tuned. It's going to be great. Also, I'm proud to note that the Department of Health and the EMA banded together to discuss, the recent heat wave that we had and, available cooling centers in the area. Okay, back to the groundhog, because I can't resist. All right, so one of the reasons why I really found this communication to be important is because, yes, we're talking about a groundhog, and everybody loves groundhogs, but not everybody knows about, the garden that we have through probation services and the opportunity for people to do their community service here. And it really is a good way to give back to the food pantries and make sure that everybody has access to, good nutritious vegetables, right? But we got to collaborate with the city because you never trounce on somebody's brand, or even if it's just tongue-in-cheek, without their consent. So we collaborated with the city. They knew that we were going to do this beforehand, and we made sure it was all right. We consulted with our public health department so they could also put out communications about the WIC program. Hey, we noticed there's a vegetable shortage at the township, Did you know we have the Women and Children program to get, good nutritious food to the community? So again, this is a great community awareness piece, not just a good opportunity to,
Take pictures.
well, take pictures, but also, chastise a reprehensible rodent for his.
Understood. For his inappropriate behavior.
Yes, well, I would like to note that we were aided by the excellent photography of our finance department that caught the thief red-handed right outside of the garden.
Because all we do is throw out the window.
I know. Well, this guy was kind of hard to miss. Look at this guy.
He's fat, all right? Hello.
I know, that's true.
Like Carrie take the picture?
No, it was Jeremy, actually.
Oh, okay.
But no, I mean, kind of hard to miss, but the probation department actually has not had substantial pounds of vegetables because of this guy. So, you know, there will.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I have to protest the statement that everyone loves groundhogs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and
They're very destructive creatures.
like raccoons that are so cute.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Well, you will be
Send the
relieved to
groundhog
know
heads
that
back to
probations
the
will be, will be working with a humane animal relocation service and this, you know.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly it. He will be exiled to Wisconsin. Woodstock Willie was very keen, though, to, you know, note his innocence and that innocent until proven guilty. So again, you know, always try to be cognizant of that in our communications.
That's right.
Follower growth and reach. We're still growing with our followers, always good. Reach for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter hasn't been that great for the month of August. I would like to, you know, formally tell the public that they really need to get back to doing what's most important in life, and that is following social media and sharing and liking posts. No, just kidding, just kidding. August is a vacation month, you know, for a lot of families. So again, we kind of take a back seat. That's to be expected. LinkedIn did well though, so those we're still at work and, you know, performing those kind of communication services. We're right on the ball. You can see the list of our highest performing posts by reach and engagement down here. If you have any questions, please let me know. Any ideas, any thoughts for future communications, just give me a holler.
Thank you.
Well, I think you hit on something with the groundhog story because people like the levity, you know? I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of that. 8,271 views. Wow.
That was the same person going back.
Well, that person that loves groundhogs or doesn't like them like Terry.
Yeah, well, but the reality is, if I had put out a same post taking a picture of the community service garden, sadly, it probably wouldn't have gotten as far of a reach. But, you know, if you really relate to people who, you know, have had their gardens raided by reprehensible rodents, you know, there is a little bit more of a, there's a little bit more reach there.
I would agree.
I can sense Pete's getting impatient with my groundhog talk here, so I'm going to let you all go. But if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alicia. Again, Alex, we're glad to have you here. I didn't say, Alex, you're from suburban Milwaukee?
Basically, yes.
Yeah, and a recent alum of UW lacrosse.
Correct.
Right, and we're glad to have him here. So, I want to introduce Amy Anderson. I didn't know if Amy's sitting next to me. Amy and I have been kind of paired for the last 6 months in kind of a professional development program that HR has been working on, kind of pairing senior staff with staff, and we've been kind of getting together every 3 or 4 weeks, getting lunch or getting a beer after work, and today was the day we've kind of culminated things, but she wanted to just kind of see what I do, so she's tracking us. And glad to have you here. Amy's in the assessor's office, and we've got to know each other well, and she's helped me kind of understand the transition going on down there from Bob Ross to Alex Benitez, and it's been good, so thank you. Thank you for being my buddy. We mentioned county board orientation, but that is going to get here sooner before we know it. And we had a pretty good program last time, and I'm quite happy to try and replicate that. But if there are things that we want to see done differently, we need to think about that, okay? So thank you for volunteering, Pam. I think we mentioned last time, or at least you did, artificial intelligence, but we do have kind of a survey out to our department heads now on AI and what we're using, but we want to move towards having a policy on AI. We kind of challenged ourselves maybe by the end of the year, so that's where we're going with that. Shaylin can't be here this morning because she's got some other professional conflicts, but she has 2 big meetings coming up. On the 24th of September, she's hosting the 2nd annual MCMPI, that's MIC, Manufacturing Partnership Initiative, Municipal Partnership Initiative. And that's kind of the joint purchasing groups that all of our municipalities do together, and she helps coordinate that as part of her position. She's getting everybody together at the Quarry on the 24th. A week and a half later, she's kind of reviving a group that Jim McConaughey had kind of gotten going, but it had tapered off during COVID, and that's a group called the EDGE Group, the Economic Development Growth Experts. And it's your ED and community development experts from the municipalities that you would expect, but it's also got chamber representatives and workforce folks who are really involved in economic development. So she, together with Mark Picos, are getting that group together on the morning of October 3rd. It's unfortunately going to coincide with Finance Committee, but it's going to be at the new MCC Catalyst building in Woodstock. I will note that at your next committee of the whole meeting, you'll have a full quarterly written report from myself and all of your offices and departments, so you'll have that. Also at that meeting, we're going to have two speakers. We're going to have Kyle Schultz, who's the director of the Greater Chicago Economic Partnership. That's the GSEP, right? Yeah, I think he's going to be here to kind of talk about GSEP and doing it alongside of Mark Picos and kind of talking about how McHenry County fits into this larger Chicago region and how GSEP is kind of framing this new perspective of regional economic development, not all everybody fight for themselves. So we are about to enter our third year of partnership into GSEP. So as we sit here next year, we're going to have to talk about, what is that fourth year looking like? And I know they're already working on that. GSEP had their most recent meeting at MCC. I think that was August 22nd or so. So, I mean, I'm feeling good about that. And we're also going to have John Housel, who's the partner from Housel Levine, to kind of talk about setting the table for the 2050 plan discussion that needs to kind of take place at P&D next month and then on to the October County Board.
Talk about that.
All right.
Well, there was a lot of bad direction too, but let's not talk about that.
So that is it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Very exciting.
Not? We have no future topics or executive session. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and a second.